Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. I am a public relations and marketing professional with a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, I'm so excited to have someone on the show who is extremely gifted in her craft. She is Amanda Fitzpatrick. She is an award winning broadcast journalist, having served in the profession for over 2 decades as a news anchor, a reporter, and as a managing editor in the cities of Dallas, Atlanta, Charlotte, and Wilmington, North Carolina. She is the recipient of 4 Salute to Excellence awards in reporting rewards by our beloved organization, the National Association of Black Journalists, NABJ. I think that's where I first met Amanda. At any rate, I've had the opportunity to actually interface with her professionally when she served as the public information and manager of the Durham Police Department. She managed media and strategy for over 600 police officers there in that department. Now, the North Carolina Democratic Party is very lucky to have hired her as their communications director. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you. What a warm welcome. It's always a warm feeling when you know the person that's interviewing you and you have a relationship. We're friends. So I remember when I moved back to Durham and I was working for the police department, you were one of the first people to reach out to me. So I always, remember that. And so we saw each other recently. We saw each other even at NABJ. So it's always hugs and love. So thank you for having me. And thank you for coming out to our Juneteenth event that we had at the Goodwin House, June 18th. So
Yep.
that's last time I saw you. Yeah.
We had a great time. And you know what? Forgive me. I still have not posted my pictures. I have video, pictures, everything. Look, I'll get it. I'll do it.
I just posted it. I asked the digital team, I said, can you post it and say 1 month later, we're still, out here celebrating Black history? Because it's different. We're adulting. I feel like, especially for me, I do communications and I help with some social media strategies. Mm-hmm. So I do it for them. So I can never do it for myself.
Exactly. And it's the same thing. It's like when you're managing several accounts, it's hard to do everything. It is hard. But listen, let's dive right into it. Here you have over 20 years experience as a journalist, an award-winning journalist. And now you're knee deep into politics, which if you thought you were going to rest, if you thought that was going to be easier than your journalism job, that is crazy. But I do feel, Amanda, that your experience managing the media and strategy for the Durham Police Department in the year of our Lord of 2020, I think that kind of seasoned you up to be prepared for this political arena. What do you think? What was that like?
I think so. I think sometimes we jokingly go back and forth about what's harder. I'll get a joke here and there. They're like, I bet you wish you were at the police department. Or I'm like, oh, let me tell you. Mm-hmm. My first week at work, I will never forget this, Pam. I went in for training. And what I love about the city of Durham, they have a thorough process from hiring to training. And so we were all in the actual training class. People don't do that anymore. So I just want to say, so we were in a training class. And I remember there was a lady in there who coughed a couple times. And again, this is like, this is what I think March. And then that Friday, we received like a notice that we weren't coming back in office for training. We needed to work remotely. And so that was the beginning of what I consider, God put me there for a reason. For those of you who don't know, Chief C.J. Davis, who is now in Memphis, was our police chief, Black woman, came out of Atlanta, a lot of experience. And she looked at me and she said, you're someone who's coming from TV and coming from the broadcast world, and I need your skill sets. And she believed in me from day one. She gave me the support financially, the budget, to be able to do the things that we needed to do to get messaging out. But I think to your point, it was like, okay, there's COVID that first week or so, we have to come out with COVID messaging. Can police arrest people? Are people going to be arrested because of the fear of COVID back then? Do we have to wear masks? So we had to get all that information out to the media immediately, as well as we had to be able to find a way to do messaging within the department, because there were officers who were like, we're risking our lives. We got babies at home. Now you want to the risk of danger plus the risk of medical danger. And so I think that was the deal. And then, sadly, George Floyd was murdered. And Chief Davis was the first person in law enforcement, a chief of a major police department, to say he was murdered. And that just resonated with a lot of people, because she took a very strong stance on that. She never wavered. It was never any confusion. And as a communications professional, we write for the principal. We write for the person that we are the voice for. And in this case, as a journalist, you write for yourself and the people. For communications, it's like I had to write a lot of Chief Davis's comments, her statements, her speeches. I think about her, ability to be able to just talk to the real person about what was going on during George Floyd. And I remember one of the big interviews we had was Good Morning America. And, I went to her house. I had a ring light. I had a green screen. I had makeup. I brought everything, toolkit with me. We did prep where I asked her questions. I'm the reporter, which you're in luck because I was a reporter for 20 years and you're being interviewed. And I would ask her questions and go over talking points with her. And she was always just really good about appreciating that extra step. I'm fixing her hair, and when she did that interview, she was lit so well. The lighting and what she said sounded good. And it was just such a fantastic interview that I think that catapulted all of the subsequent interviews from everywhere, from Piers Morgan reaching out to BBC, Fox News, nationally, Australia, podcast and radio interviews. It really blew up in terms of just so much exposure from that, and her getting that message out, I think, meant a lot. Oh, and then there was, in addition to that, it was like, 8 Can't Wait. I remember people kept talking about 8 Can't Wait, and I found them and I reached out to them and I said, hey, we're meeting these guidelines. We need to figure out why you're not, why we're on this list of bad policing. And that ended up turning to them having to change some language in our guidelines, because I found that loophole. And I was like, this is what we're doing. And it was some missing words. So they ended up passing the whole thing and getting those words added in there, which led to us being in compliance with 8 Can't Wait. Also, there were just so many things that happened. I think, we had people outside our door that were protesting, that I remember posting a picture of Melissa Bishop, shout out to her. She was my boss and captain, and she ended up retiring as, I think, deputy chief now. But I posted a picture of her and they put a pig's head over her face. They reposted it. So I couldn't tell people the work that I was doing for that whole time. Like, I feel like I'm coming from TV world to, PR, and I'm killing it. I'm getting the messaging out. But I couldn't share it with anyone other than friends and family, because I knew there was so much backlash against police, and it was understandable. But I also came up with the slogan, be the change, because I knew that there were people that I worked with. I grew up in Durham. I'm from North Carolina. I'm from Durham. And I knew that there were people like me who were working at the police department from North Carolina, from Durham, who were basically policing their communities. So I think Dallas police chief said it pissed people off, but he said, look, if you don't like what you see, join the force. And so that was kind of like our thing, was like, in a nicer way, be the change, and that was something that I think was another campaign kicked off. So I could go on and on about all of the work that I put in at the police department. I feel like it was a silent job. People didn't know the work I was doing, but people who worked there knew.
Right. So listen, what, now that you're at the North Carolina Democratic Party, what is a typical day like there for you? Because I can only imagine in the age of Trump and Trump 2.0, and here in North Carolina with all of the issues that we have, what's it like? What's a typical day like?
I wake up in the morning. Usually, there've been some sleepless nights. My husband's getting mad at me. My mom's like, you work too much. And it's not because they're making me. My job is really cool about, like, take your time off, do what you need to do to rest.
But you can't when you do.
But you can't. It burns in my, even this weekend, I've been working all weekend. My boss was like, take off Friday. I've been working all weekend since I got back from the NAACP conference. We'll talk about that after. But to your question, what is a typical day like? So I wake up at sometimes 6:30 in the morning, 7 a.m. I work from home sometimes. I work in the office. Sometimes I work in location. It just all depends. But I start off with prayer. I pray. That's how my day starts. And then I listen to gospel music. I play Maverick, City Music, Elevation. John P. Key, Fred Hammond. Anyway, I play some gospel music to set my mind and my brain to what is to come. And then I look at my phone. And I'll be honest, it's always a lot of messaging. It's almost like every day Trump wakes up and he's like, let me throw something to the wall. And let me see what's, uh-oh. Is that me?
I think so. That is so strange. It sounds
Hold
like,
on.
huh? Hold on, guys. You know this show is live. I had noticed that we were doing she was freezing a little bit. So maybe it was something with the internet or something. But Amanda will be back. Loretta, hey, Soror. Hey, Renee. We're going to get into more of her work. That's the one advantage of this type of show. At least we can go over if we have to get everything in. And feel free if you all have any questions or whatever that she can't answer, we will do that. All right. Okay. All right, there you go. You're back.
I have no idea what that was. There's no fires, and there's not an alarm. You talk about God, and stuff starts happening. That was busy.
Because you had froze up a few times, and I thought maybe that had something to do with it, because you were intermittently freezing up a little bit while you were talking. It was weird.
This is live, okay.
Going, but it was still whatever. So what has surprised you most about this new position?
I would say, what surprised me most about this position is the fact that every day is a different day. Like, getting to your point, and you wake up in the morning and it's like, okay, what has happened today? What's going on today? What's the story? I do a lot of different things. In this role, I work with candidates who are running for office. With our party, we can't pick a candidate. Like, for example, if there are two Democrats running for a particular office, we don't say, okay, I like this person better, I'm going to work with this person. That's not how it works. Anyone that reaches out to me that's a Democrat, we are like the vehicle that gets them to where they need to go. And so if someone reaches out to me and they need my help with communication strategies, if they need my help with social media, or just overall anything dealing with communication, I'm able to help them. And so that is one of the things that I love. I'm working with Jesse Oppenheim out of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. He's running against Mark Harris for Congress. I met with Kim McCool, who's also out there in Charlotte running, and Matthew's running for office as well. So it's kind of like, I can come across anyone. I'm Justice Anita Earls. I mean, I worked with her as far as like the launch of her campaign, being able to give her some ideas, places that she should go, people she should talk to, and just working with these people individually about communication strategies, giving them advice, telling them what they need to do to be able to get our vote, I think has been very instrumental. And any given day, I am responding to emails from people who are inquiring about what we're doing. They want to know what our messaging is. I handle the media for my boss, Chair Anderson Clayton, who is the chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party. She does a really good job at it.
Guys, she's here. And hopefully we'll have her next week. Fingers crossed.
I have bookings that I'm going to get her on here. So that's part of my job too, is like scheduling her interviews. So whenever a media outlet reaches out to her, I'm the communications director. So I'm the first point of contact, which means I'm the person that will talk to them, find out what they're trying to get, what their questions are going to be, when they want to talk to her. And then I set it up along with her scheduler, Nathan, who's doing a great job as well. And so that's a very important job. But then there's also other parts of my job, like, messaging, talking points. When something happens, which, as we talk about every single day, something's happening, Trump might wake up one day.
Yeah.
So when that happens, it's important for me to be able to put together talking points, do some quick research, make sure we're all in alignment with our messaging. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've heard from people is like, you guys, what is your messaging and how do you stick to the same messaging? And so that's something that I've definitely tried to do.
I will say that North Carolina, you guys do a good job with that, especially since I know that since Anderson's been on board, I feel like it with her energy and what have you, she is just very focused and what have you. And it'd be nice if some of this talent, well, we don't want to lose you in North Carolina, but some of that energy and focus, if we could have it on the national level, that would be chef's kiss, because I think that's our biggest problem is our messaging. It seems like the Democrats took a long time to get their footing, and it feels like they're getting their footing now, but I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it's like I always look at how this overall thing is, and and I do work with the national office as well. I'm able to text their communications contact there, and they're able to usually respond pretty quickly. We do try to stay in unison on messaging. They do calls where they fill us in on here's some topics that are happening so we're not left out in the dust. And I think that's important as well. And I think messaging is important because I feel like if we're not on the same page, then we're not going to be able to turn the page to move on to win. But then you've got Republicans and you've got an administration that's constantly changing the rules and constantly trying to burn the pages. And so every time you feel like you get ahead, they're trying to beat us out. But the good news is we are in I would say a good place. We've got Chair Clayton traveling to 50 counties. We have a summer rural listening tour. During this tour, she's going from county to county so that she can talk to real voters. And real voters can come up to her, shake her hand, see she's a real person, and they can even ask questions. I went to the one that was in New Bern, and we had about 50 or so people there. And I always kind of tell this story. I invited a group of Black women. One of them I met through my time in Wilmington, North Carolina as a news anchor. She was in New Bern, and she was active there doing things. And I reconnected with her and said, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be in town. And I'm bringing Anderson Clayton. And she said, well, I want to talk to her. And I've got some people that want to talk to her. And then we got there and they were, her friends were angry. They're like, we're tired of the Democratic Party. We feel used. Black women are fed up. And I was sitting there like, I'm going to lose my job. I just got this job. I'm about to lose this job. That's how I felt. I mean, I had like, prickly on the back of your neck. I'm sweating. Yeah. Sweating. And I'm like, but I mean, some of the stuff they were saying, I was like, I'm a Black woman, I get it. And then some of the stuff I was like, okay, now we're trying,
You're going too far.
yeah. But she took it. She took it all. And she stayed in contact with one of the ladies. I remember she's like, can I get her number? I want to reach out. So afterwards we talked, and Raina Morgan was there, who's the vice chair of the DNC on the national level. I've been able to get a good relationship with her as well. She's local. She's in our state. Raina Morgan.
Okay.
She's the vice chair. Yep, she graduated UNC Chapel Hill, and she's the vice chair. So she's civic engagement. So it was perfect for her to be there. She was there part of the town hall with Justice Anita Earls. And my job was to bring the media there, which I did have some reporters there. But then I also wanted to do kind of like a focus group, with some local Black women, because I wasn't, I was like, I wanted them to have a voice too. And it was amazing. They were able to share their thoughts. And I mean, at the end of the day, we've got to take the good with the bad. And when someone is telling us how they feel, we've got to listen. I think that's what was learned in this last election.
Listen, and that you just segued into my next question, was that you and I, we're part of the 92%, as are some of the people in the chat. We're part of the 92% of the Black women who voted for Kamala Harris, your AKA soror, I might add. And after the November election, there have been memes all over the place. And all over the place saying, listen, we're tired. We're not doing anymore. We're not protesting. Don't ask us to march. Don't ask us to sign a petition. Don't ask us to do nothing, because you didn't listen to us. And this thing is going to get really bad. And then as the immigrant situation started happening and stuff, and then even Kamala herself said, I told you so. And then the whole retribution thing from Trump, I told you so, or whatever. Now we have this whole pure headache with the Republicans in our state legislature as well, particularly here in North Carolina, particularly. How can we, Amanda, what do we have to do? And I'm saying we, because I'm putting myself in it too, as part of the 92%, to get our sisters back on board, engaged, to want to do something, to really work. Because listen, it's not just impacting one group or this group. What impacts one of us impacts all of us, really.
That's right. And I think about growing up, whenever I did something my mom told me not to do, she still loved me. And she still let me come back home, And I think that we've got a lot of Black women who are tired. And
Mm,
she would also let me have my moments. So I
mm,
think that, I have some people that I'm close friends with that I met while covering. That's how I got into this. I was covering the White House. I was reporting from the White House last year. I was on the, campaign trail during the Biden run and also during the Harris run.
uh-huh.
So personally, it's like, I talk to them and I'm like, what's going on? We need to keep the momentum going. And I told you guys this, and that, because I was telling them too that a lot of people in Philly, when I was working in Philly, I was talking to immigrants and I was talking to, Black folks, and they were like, they were voting for Trump. And I would tell people this and they would look at me like I was crazy. And there were instances I think people might have been like, who's like, have you lost your mind? They're never going to vote for Trump. And then when the election happened, I had a lot of people say, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you
Mm-hmm.
kind of called it. But as a reporter, you talk to real people, you go to groups and people share things with you. And they may not always talk about it on camera, but you're in a lot of spaces. And so, with that being said, to answer your question, um, people do need to rest. We all need to rest. And
Yeah.
so, in talking to some of my friends who worked it, they were like, after it happened, they shut down. They weren't answering their phone. They weren't taking
Yeah.
calls. They were
Yeah.
just in mourning. They were hurting.
Yeah.
And I think, especially, if you have something that's really bad happen, like Trump getting elected, and you're worried about the future, and you feel, disheartened and disenfranchised in a way as well, then you're going to go to what you know best, which is either anger, frustration, or not doing anything at rest. And so I think that for Black women who said, I need to take a break, take a break.
Right.
We had a long race, take a break, but you can't sit out too long, because
Right.
if you sit out too long, like my mom used to say, come on back in the house, because I ain't gonna leave you out there to dry.
Right.
Something
Right.
bad could happen. And in this case, something bad could happen. And I want to, just read to you, like, with this bill that's been passed, nearly 652,000 North Carolinians will lose health insurance. That's our mothers, our sisters. That's, for some of us, it's us. And
Yes.
so it matters. 142,000 people, North Carolinians, are at risk of losing food assistance. Nearly
Yes.
125,000 North Carolinians could lose their job. That we have a website, it's the Trump tax website, where we have all these stats that have been combined state by state.
Mhm.
And in this instance, you look at just the impact it's going to have on our state, even in rural hospitals, right? 5 rural hospitals in North Carolina are at risk of closing. And why that's so important is North Carolina is the second largest rural state next to Texas in the country.
We're the
So
second.
that means we have a lot of rural counties. That's why we're doing a rural county listening tour, 50 counties this summer.
Well, you
Because
was always, she was the first person I ever heard talk about, look, we are going to be on it with this rural communities and what have you. Wow.
yes, yes. And so that's why, when you talk about us Black women taking a break, it's like, but for so long, like, we've got to be able to keep the fight, because and of course I've talked to Black women, but even like just coming back from NAACP. So I went to the NAACP conference where we were part of just being there, listening, connecting with them. And I'm a former NAACP president myself. I founded a chapter in college, so I know, I was very active. But the mission and the message was the urgency of now. That was the message there. And it's perfect, because there is an urgency of now. If we sit back too long, like, we can rest, but if we sit back too long, when we wake up and when we get back active, it's not going to be anything to fight for. So
Right.
we've got to start picking ourselves back up and doing what we've done. And I'm gonna be honest, I mean, one of the missions and one of the things that Anderson Clayton has done in the DNC, not DNC, but our NC Dems have done, is we've gotten people in municipal elections. And that's one of the biggest things, is making sure that there's someone running for office everywhere. Any office that's open, we wanted to put a Democrat there, even if they're not going to win, but we want somebody there, because there were so many offices that did not have candidates. And that is not the way to go.
No.
Yes.
And that's the other thing. All politics are local. It's
Right.
everything is local. Local first. We get all the and that's the big educational thing that I learned, that so many people just think, well, I'll just vote in the presidential elections. No, all of those municipal elections, the school board elections, all of those things are important, and you have to be in it to win it. Have to
Right.
be when there was a few comments in the thing. Joe James wants to know, is the Raleigh DNC hiring and communications? Oh,
I am the only communications director, and then we have two other staffers. But if you go to our website, ncdp.org, look up jobs and stay posted. Right now, we're not, but you can always check back. Please do. We're always looking for good people.
Okay. And Renee wanted to know, have you ever gone back to speak with some of those people who voted for Trumpster to see how they feel now?
So thank you. That's a good question, Renee. I have not talked to the people because I moved from Philly here, so I have not been able to have those conversations in those groups. But I have. I want to say I in my circle I don't have anyone that voted for Trump. So, but I have had conversations with some people through the new job capacity who said they felt that they were lied to, who didn't realize it would impact them. So we hear stories. I will say this: we hear stories of people who thought, okay, well, I did it because I didn't like this issue, but I didn't know it was going to impact me in this issue, like the veterans with diversity and inclusion. They didn't realize that they would be cuts. You know how hard it was for us to be able to get funding for veterans, for the VA hospital, for services. I mean, I'm from the state. My dad's a vet. He was going to the VA hospital. And I remember him not being able to get an appointment for a year some years ago. And so it's like to see the shift and see him be able to get appointments. And my husband's a vet, to see them be able to get services that they needed. And then to see people are getting fired and let go. It's like, we don't want to go backwards. Everything that they're doing is going backwards, but not in a good way, or not for all people. So, I would be interested to see, but I think we all read the stories about people who said, I didn't know they meant me. I thought they were going to mess with this group, but not me. I didn't know I'd be a victim to Trump's, attacks.
And that gets to the point of the whole otherism about life in general. Oh, I don't care about the other guy. It's the other guy or whatever. When you have to realize it's all of us. We're all in this together. Okay. Black women in artificial intelligence. I know who this is. How does the world look different when Black women opt in?
Well, if your title is anything about what you do for a career, it's going to look a lot better if we can get your help with the AI aspect of things. So I'm learning about AI more and more. And from in high school, we were on typewriters. In college, we used pagers, and now it's like you have, But anyway, to your question, we know that Black women take charge, leaders. We're fighters.
Yes,
we're helpers. We're nurturers. I mean, we are the backbone of anything we do, any organization we're in, any job we take, any household. We just are. We're single mothers, we're married mothers, we're everything. And so when we opt in and mobilize, look at Stacey Abrams in Georgia, what she did with voters. I think that was a testament of what Black women can do. And so I think, if we sit out on the sidelines too long and we sit in our feelings too long, we're going to miss out on the opportunity to show the world what we can do. And maybe if you're watching, you're thinking, I'm still mad. I don't want to have anything to do with y'all. Well, come on, join us, because we need you, because what's the alternative? I mean, I've seen what Trump is doing.
Yeah.
And I see how he's impacting us with everything from diversity, equity, inclusion, trying to get rid of learning about Black history. I was living in Florida, 2 years ago. We had bought and moved out to Florida with my husband's job. And I couldn't believe on the news when DeSantis talked about not wanting to go to a Black history event. And I couldn't believe when I watched the news and he talked about banning books. And teaching about slavery is bad, because if you teach about slavery, it makes kids think that they're inferior, and it makes other kids think they're better, and it makes them feel guilty because their ancestors were like it. You have to know about the past to get into the present and the future. Look at the Wilmington massacre that happened. They're going to just try to rename that. So these are things, and living in Wilmington in North Carolina, where I had my daughter and spent time, I learned about that from living there, not from school. And I was, raised in Durham and went to public schools in Durham. But I mean, the fact that I was, learning that meant so much, and it was so much history and text. I can imagine people not learning the basics of slavery and not learning where ancestors were. And I want to mention, I think it's important for me. I think it's important because it is what has driven me. I think had I not known the rich history, if I didn't know that my grandfather, T. Tat Johnson, out in Harnett County, did not have a high school education, but had a restaurant, had a barber shop, and had a store, and had acres of land that my family still lives on thanks to his smarts and my grandma Bernice. But if it wasn't for him being able to, I think about, like my mom would say, he'd go and they would pick cotton. This is what one generation back. They would pick cotton and he would go to sell the cotton. And the person who was buying it would tell all the white men, okay, how much you want? Give them the money. But when he showed up, they would say, here. And they would give him an eighth or even a penny, of whatever he should have gotten. And he had to take it because that's the time that they lived in. I remember my grandmother didn't want to go with me on a job interview for a TV reporter job in Mississippi because she said they killed us in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And this is the 2000s. So I have all of that history that's been given to me, but I think it's important for those people to know that aren't hearing that history in their home so that they know we don't want to go back to that. We don't want them to ever think slavery was a good thing or that us Jim Crow was positive. And that's what they teach in some places. So I think we're lucky that we don't have DeSantis here. We have a Democratic governor, Josh Stein, and Attorney General and Jeff Jackson, and and the list goes on. So I mean, to answer your question, Black women, we need to work together. And if it means, running for office, if it means getting other Black women to run for office and then working on their campaigns, if it means educating voters about bills that maybe you only care about, do something. Doing nothing means nothing will come of it, but do something.
And that's what Latasha Brown encouraged me via Twitter or X to do something. And that's why this show exists.
Oh,
do something.
And I'm grateful to be able to come on and talk. This is my first interview since taking on this role. So, I mean, I think, yes. This is my first interview since taking on this role. And I think it's important, when you told me, you want to speak to Black women from a Black woman who's in a position for messaging for a whole party of people, and I'm very fortunate that I work with people who, see me. I think this is you talked about news and then this place. When you work with people who they really care about what they do, and they really have like a reason for getting up and going to work every day, that's why the work doesn't stop. That's why the hours sometimes people are logging on at midnight or 1 a.m. or messaging at 2 a.m. because we're all trying to make sure that Democrats get elected. We're trying to make sure that we don't go backwards, and we're trying to make sure that we save the state. And so that has just been the mission. And I think we're all, regardless of our color, sexuality, race, religion, and all of that, we're all on the same page when it comes to what we're trying to do moving forward.
All right. So, Amanda, what's your advice for candidates here in North Carolina? Because North Carolina can be a little bit tricky because I swear, I know that Trisha Cotham, who she was a Democrat. Then she sat out for a while. She came back and ran again in her Democratic district. And then she flipped the switch on us. And I think it was all by design. The Republicans had it in the bag. I will never forget that press conference when she decided that she was going to turn into a Republican.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Republicans have like a bag of dirty tricks they pull out. Whenever it's like, you play spades and tongue. Like if you renege, you get kicked out the game, you lose your points. Like with them, it's like they're always trying to change the game. They're always trying to change the rules, from gerrymandering and switching districts so that they can get a candidate to win, to trying to run people out of their seat if they don't vote the way they want them to vote in legislature. Like this is what they've been doing. So in terms of her, Ken McCool, who's a cool guy, I met him when I was down in Charlotte last week. He's running against her. He's born and raised out of Matthews. He took up the charge. He's currently county commissioner, and he's going to run against her for her seat. And for people that are interested in running, I can understand that there's some fear. I can understand there's some, concerns, but you're going to get the tools you need from the state party. People sometimes may ask, I even was like, what do we do? The state party provides the tools. We've got someone, Christy, who does trainings. It tells you how to run for office. And literally you can sit down and watch a live Zoom with her live, with real people on there helping. And they will tell you, here's what you need to do for you. You need to get a treasurer. You need to, make sure you have a social media separate account. You need to get a campaign. Like they will tell you the steps. That's important. And then we've got I think this week they're doing campaign financing, how to raise money, because the deadline has already passed for filing, I believe, for municipals. I think it was the 17th for filing for office. So now if you've already filed, now you need to log in and find out how to run your campaign and how to get funding. So my advice would be to take advantage of those tools. Harmon, who also came from Philly, he's our stats and data guy. Like, he is an expert when it comes to data. I asked him about some data and he came back with all these other statistics that was even bigger than I could have imagined. And we can use that to figure out where we need to target for votes. We can use it for talking to the public. Our digital team, Kayla is the director of that. She helps with the websites and mobilize links if you're having events. So we've got a whole full-time staff that works year-round, which is different from a lot of the state parties, who works towards getting Democrats elected. So if you've got all these resources, the Goodwin House in Raleigh, where our office is based out of. If you need to have events, we do events there. We had our Juneteenth celebration, June 18th there. I had over 150 people show up. So thank you. So, having that as a backdrop, why wouldn't you run for office? And having said that, if it's too late, for you to run for office, why not help someone who is running for office? If you know of someone, look, you can go to wherever your county is and look and see who's running for office in the different positions. See who you like that's a Democrat, and then reach out to them and tell them you want to help their campaign.
Right. Okay, here's an interesting comment. I am tired, but I know I can't give up and must continue to work and wake up our sleeping giants. We all can do something. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's true. Even, a few bucks, a few dollars. Hey, Tasha, see one of my friends from Florida. Hey, actually, we met in Dallas by way of Florida. But even if you spend a few dollars on a campaign, I was talking with Jesse, and he was saying, he's raised like $50,000, and he's like, I'm going to this event. I was like, well, tell people, look, you may not have 100 or 500, but if you can give me $25 or $75 and get 4 friends to do it too, then that puts me at a mark where I'm over 250, or just something that allows for people to give back. Maybe you don't have the time, you have the money. Maybe you want to host a fundraiser at your home. Maybe you don't have the money, but you have the time. Maybe you want to come and canvass and knock on doors and help us get votes. We're always looking for people to canvass. Sarah, and we have a great team, Daniel French, and we just have a lot of people who are very active and going door to door, still knocking on doors, talking to voters and getting voters registered and getting people to vote.
Now, I'm going to tell you, Amanda, I personally don't like people knocking on my door. I don't mind them texting me, calling me, any of that, but the knocking on the door thing, because it's just so many crazies out here.
No, I understand. And that's good to know, because we text too. So we text, we call too. We call,
email at all my email. I get everything. Well, let me ask you this, Amanda. In all of this help that you're giving to the potential candidates, is there a fee? Do they have a fee scale that they have to pay to get you guys help there at the Goodwin House?
No, and I hate to say this, but if somebody was to reach out to me, I'd offer free services. Now, granted, it might not be immediately. Now, I am pretty quick on the return. Like, I'm starting to learn to prioritize. There's not enough hours in a day to do everything I need to do. I couldn't even tell you, like, from scheduling an interview to putting together a proposal. We have a unity dinner coming up Saturday. We've sold out of single table tickets, but I think we have a few sponsorship tables left. But we've got Governor Roy Cooper, former Governor Roy Cooper, is going to be there speaking.
Okay.
Yes, we got a lot of people. So I see you got a lot of questions, so I want to make sure.
Yeah, this one, another one from Black and Artificial Intelligence. What is going to be different? What laws, rules, regulations will change? What is the real messaging beyond fear? What neighborhoods will be changed? What healthcare concerns will be changed? Here's the thing. You can't change a daggone thing unless you change people in office and make them put their feet to the fire to get things done. And so if you get the wrong people in office, you're going to have the mess that we have right now.
Right.
And then,
look at the big, beautiful bill. It passed. And that's why we are where we are right now with all these cuts. Over 600,000 people. Over 600,000 people will lose health care.
Yeah. Because
of Trump's big, beautiful bill and the people that voted for it. So if you put people in office who stand on business, as we say, 10 toes down for the right reason for us, then it's like, to me, they're going to vote on bills and laws that help us. Like we wouldn't be looking at them banning diversity, equity, inclusion so that
Right.
schools aren't able to teach about Black history or let, other students. There's so many different things that are happening right now. I don't even think people realize it until it's too late. I think when you go to school and you're like, wait, what do you mean we don't have an after school program? What do you mean $8 million cut out of Wake County schools means we don't have teachers and staff to teach our Spanish speaking students? Like, what do you mean we don't have food? They're not going to have lunch. Like I've seen where schools have let kids eat, like in Philadelphia, they had a program where kids can eat for free. When I was in school in Durham at Northern, we had to pay, but there was a reduced lunch program.
And they
and
said
I
shit here in North Carolina, you could eat free, but I don't know now what the cut.
Yeah, so that's So how does that? Like my daughter goes to pre-K, she doesn't have to pay. They eat lunch for free. They eat breakfast and lunch. It's the greatest thing because hunger was one of the number one things that a lot of kids are facing. And we don't talk about hunger anymore. We don't talk about crime in the Black community anymore. I think that we, as Black women, and this is, you told me come and talk as a Black woman, I think that if we're tired and we're sitting back, while we're tired and sitting back, these are some of the things that we could be tackling. Like maybe you're not on board with some of the national issues. Maybe you're not on board with some of the state issues, but there's still work to be done in our own communities. And we can't sit back on our children and what's to come because it does matter.
12 to 16 million in the country will lose Medicaid or the Affordable Care Act. And the prices, all of our health insurance is going to go up because of all of the stuff that's happened. It's just insane.
It's
insane.
It is. And I remember, being at the White House and I was talking to, at the time, Vice President Kamala Harris's team. And this is when Biden was president before he was running. And they had I guess you could say they would have us come and they would do these sit downs with us so we could ask all the questions we wanted to ask. It was a really great working relationship. And I remember that was one of the things that came up. It was like, they were so excited that they were going to have medicine for diabetics for I think it was like $125 or some low. It was a capped copay. Remember that?
$30 a month or something.
Yeah, it was affordable.
It was very affordable.
So it's like to go from we're going to have cap copay so that whoever needs it can get diabetic medicine. I mean, a lot of us know people who have diabetes and who have to pay for that, to saying you're not going to get any help and you're now not even going to be able to afford it. It's going to be so expensive. Like, what are we doing here? So it's like we can sit back all day and wait to see what happens. But when it happens, and it is going to happen, it's happening. Then what? And it's not about fear, creating fear. It's just reality. Like if I think there's a difference between fear of something and something actually being reality. And we know once something's a law, it's reality.
Absolutely. You go, girl. Somebody's proud of you, Tasha. So politics, Amanda, is a contact sport. It is. You gotta touch people. You gotta shake their hands. You gotta be in their face. You gotta, it's a contact sport. It really is. And I think and of course it is as competitive as any national sport that we see on television today. You got to jump in to be in. You got to jump in to get involved. How does someone get involved who considers themselves just a political, somebody that's just curious about it? How can they get involved?
What do you mean? Are we talking like working, volunteering, because that's what I would say.
Volunteering or whatever. I mean, because some people are a little intimidated. They're like, what do I do? I don't know where to go, what to do, or whatever. Is that something that you guys can steer people to if they were to call your offices at the Goodwin House?
Yeah, I would say you can always volunteer. You can volunteer. So last week I went to the NAACP conference in Charlotte. They had the national conference. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 8,000 people attended. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw it on the news. I know every time I say it sounds like I need a fact check because it sounds like, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. You've got people from all over the country active in NAACP. And while I was there was a National Association of Black Journalists reception. So I invited some of my colleagues to the matter of fact, I mentioned Jesse Oppenheim. I'm currently working with him. So I invited him to the reception and I invited some of our other colleagues and we went there and they were able to meet real journalists in real time, have conversations, talk to them, introduce themselves. And the biggest thing I think my takeaway was that people are just people. And so I think that we can all take from that there's a way for us all to get involved, whether it's volunteering, whether it's grassroots. If you're not a person that likes to knock on the door, but you're someone who likes to make calls, if you
Right.
don't mind texting, if you don't mind volunteering at some of our events, with setup or takedown. But then also, if you just want to ease your way in there, find a local candidate or find a local person in office and volunteer in their campaign. And when he walked away, I met this very nice lady, Miss Phyllis, and she just told him she volunteered in his campaign. And so she has, I believe, a podcast and some of her own social media things. So he's like, yeah, she's going to help me. By him going to that, he met media friends, but he also found some people that would volunteer with him because they liked him. And so I think, like, for someone who's interested in getting involved, there are a lot of different jobs you can do, and there are a lot of paying jobs. Now, you have to go to our website to see what we currently have, but there's a lot of opportunity there.
Okay, good. So that young man that asked, where is he? Joe is his name. There he is. Joe James. Did you hear that? Just make sure you go to the website and look for a job there. Now, Mark Lee put something here in the chat, and I want to address it because I was told something about this, what he's talking about.
Okay.
Said there is a recent poll that says Trump has had a bump in our community. I think you mean in the Black community. What's that about? I heard that there is a pollster that was deliberately taking information and they were just inverting it. I mean, they were lying about the information. And this came from my soror and political analyst. She's not a political, she's a policy analyst person, that she had read this on good authority. It's just some bizarre, I may be saying it wrong, but it was so bizarre. I mean, everything with them is so weird. I mean, it defies common sense.
He would have to share a link with us of where he's getting that data. Yeah, Mark.
I heard this, but Mark needs to tell us where he saw this at. But I know what he's referring to. I heard that too, and I thought it was weird. I believe people are not listening; they are hearing, but not until it affects them. There is a difference. Yes.
That part.
That part. And you know, I think that one thing that I've learned since this election occurred was the selfishness of people. You know, it's just because once upon a time, people actually did care about how things worked out for other people, but we're not that way now. Oh, here's something Joe says: male patriarchy played a major role in how Trump got elected. That is true, very true. You know, they want us to be back barefoot and pregnant, and you know, I don't get it. It's some strange stuff going on, guys. Very strange.
It is. And I mean, we emphasize voting, and we're trying to get people to vote. That's why we, reach out to people. We tell people about the issues. We found that a lot of people, especially in the rural areas, they're not watching the news, or they're not getting the information. They're not on Facebook. Great grandma's not on Facebook sometimes. And so we are
even have, all of them don't have broadband. And now with the big bill, they're cutting that.
Right. So what's happened is misinformation. So to your point, Joe, if they're telling, it's so sad, if they're telling people the wrong information, or they're lying to them about what some of these bills do or what they're doing in office, and they believe it because they don't know any better, then that's why they're voting in that direction. So it's important for us not to spank them on the hand, but to go to them and say, here's all the information. Here's the truth. Like here's how the people are voting that you keep voting for. We were in Saxe-Baja, and it was like, it was a packed event. We had Max Frost, and it was just such an engaging event. It was a big town hall, and people had a lot of questions. There were business owners. One lady was like, I own a business, and people are not buying our furniture because they're nervous about the economy. And this was like back in April, I believe it was when I first started, April, May. And it was like, she's like, this is impacting me, in my business as a business owner. But when you listen to what Trump says, oh, everything's for business owners. We're helping business owners. Like he says things, and then the narrative gets pushed.
Yes, he gaslights, and and whenever he says how crooked something is or bad something is or whatever, he's projecting. It's
Right.
always projection. It's deflecting from what he's actually doing. And you have to understand that when he talks, he's speaking an
Right.
opposite thing.
Whatever he says, yeah. Whatever he says, don't believe it unless like. And if you do, sorry for you.
Yeah.
But I think just we got to be energized. We've got to be energized. We've got to work together. We've got to come up with strategies, or at least follow the strategies that we have. We have a strategic plan as a party, and we are working in North Carolina. We're trying to get voters registered who haven't registered. We're trying to get people, Black women like me, who maybe like you've talked about, are tired, to not be untired, to come back, join us, get reinvigorated. Like, we want people to get back into the fold, and we want to make sure that we're getting the messaging out that we are a Big Tent party. We are for everyone, but we're also looking at the numbers and the stats. We know what's coming for North Carolina. We know, I think in 2028, with the funding cuts, we could no longer have SNAP benefits, I believe. So, I mean, that's a serious thing to know about. And I told you some of the statistics for people who are just joining in. I mean, when I think about the fact that we're going to lose 600,000 people could lose health care. That's just in North Carolina. We're not even talking about, like, we're talking North Carolina. 5 rural hospitals could close. I've been in rural areas, like my family's from rural area. And I can tell you, like, I always, when it comes to hospital care, for those of you who don't know my story, like, I almost, died giving childbirth to my daughter, Naomi. And I was fortunate enough that even being on TV as a news anchor, the doctor who I had was a good doctor. She didn't care about the TV news or any of that. And I just remember, like, I felt vulnerable in that moment when I'm laying there on the table and I'm bleeding out. Sorry to be graphic, but I felt myself like dying. Like, I actually felt myself losing my breath and everything. And she said, "You almost died." And she brought me back, and she had a plan in place. I saw a doctor right after that. I had to have emergency surgery to stop the bleeding. So to have 2 surgeries after childbirth. And then I was in the hospital for weeks. My daughter was premature. She was in the hospital for 7 weeks. She had stopped breathing too. So both of us, just like that, my husband, Yusuf, could have lost us. But God is good. We're still here, but I feel like it's a reason for that. And I think about all of the women who have died during childbirth or after childbirth. And I think about how our previous administration had came up with, Black maternal mortality rate, education and day, and they're passing bills and creating funding to curb that and change that. And to see that we're in an administration right now that they don't care about any of that. They're not talking about it. They're not. Everybody knows someone who, and I've met people in the street, and I've talked to them, and they have similar stories. I was at the nail salon, and she was sharing that story, how they didn't listen to her and everything. So, and some of the reason they say
Didn't
this
listen to Serena either.
Serena Williams, multi-millionaire, tennis player, So I mean, and there are women that I had 2 insurances. I was on TV. I knew nurses knew who I was, and I still was almost a statistic. And, thankfully, again, I had the right care. Had I been somewhere else or in a situation, like so many other women, then I wouldn't be here today. And so that is why these are things that I think about personally when I think about why I left TV news and turned down a TV job when I got here to take this job, because I care about what we're doing, and I care to use my skills as a journalist, my skills as an orator, as someone who's just a real person, to try to help get Democrats elected, to try to get people in office, and to get correct messaging out, and to help my team as much as I can.
Right.
That's what it boils down to.
Commissioner Stephen Valentine is a commissioner here in Durham.
Hello, sir.
Steve, he says, are we communicating that many of the provisions in the big ugly bill are not triggered until after the midterm elections? I know I've been personally saying it on the show and what have you, but that is important because the fix is in. They want to make sure that everything is chill during midterms, and then, oh well, deuces, so what, it happened after the fact, so that, because people's memories are so short. And that's a very good question, Steve.
It's a good question. It's a good point. First of all, I called the ugly bill too, so it's funny you say that, Pam. Yes, think about it. I mean, right now people are fired up, and they're going to be people that are going to vote Democrat. We are going to get the Senate seat. Whoever is running for Senate, we're going to get the Senate seat. We're going to win the elections in the midterm. Once we do, to your point, all of this terrible stuff that's happened up until this point is then going to start going into effect, so that they can then blame the Democrats.
Right. So we need to let people know. We need to let them know
Right.
about every little lie. And it's almost like we've got to keep it on repeat and we need to remind people what life was like
Right.
before January 20th at 12 noon.
Right. That is
Well,
correct.
because he was doing all those executive orders,
Mhm.
at the moment, they got off doing their thing
Oh,
there. Yeah.
I mean, I was covering the Department of Education, and I remember talking to the undersecretary during the Biden administration,
Mhm.
literally weeks leading into the election, and I remember asking the question, okay, he's talking about defunding public education, Department of Education. What does that look like? Can that happen? And he said, well, he said, actually, no, because Congress has to pass it, to get rid, because we have all these titles in place. I think it's Title IX, I'm sorry, in place. So no, it wouldn't happen. But then he was also like, at the same time, if they were to agree and pass something, it could happen. So I always had it back in my mind, like anything is possible when you have, the worst person ever at the
Right.
head of the country. And so, it was just like scary to me that we're now seeing all of this come to fruition.
Right.
Because to your point, I mean, we look at the education costs. Look at the Leandro bill. Like that's been something that's been sitting in my mind too since I've gotten here. And I actually sent a press release out to the media. Shame on you for not covering it enough. Like Spectrum did cover it.
Explain to the audience what the Leandro bill is.
So, okay, so we have public funding. There was a lawsuit. It's been going on for decades. And there
Mhm.
was a lawsuit saying in some of our poor school districts that they were not getting adequate funding. And
Right.
they were correct. And it was decided that you were right. You are not getting adequate funding that you should.
Mhm.
And basically, it's just sitting. It's just sitting because even though it was approved, and one of the judges in a higher court said that it should go back. We need to look at the budget again. I think it's like millions of dollars. And they're like, we need to look at it again. And I'm dumbing it down, not to dumb it down, but I'm making it plain. We need
Right.
to look at it again before we approve it. And it's going to could go to the Supreme Court. So if the Supreme Court justices decide that they're not going to approve this funding, then we would not get the money. So just imagine, to even make it more simpler, imagine you've got a bank account with millions of dollars sitting there that's already been decided should go to public schools,
Mhm.
but it's not going there because it's being held up. So when it gets to the justices, we would hope they would do the right thing. And we've got Allison Ricks, who's amazing, and Supreme Court Justice. That was a fight to the end. She's back. We got Supreme Court Justice Anita Earls, who is running for. Make sure we vote her in, because she's going to be running in 2026. I want to make sure I point that out. But we've got those two on our side. But then we've got some other justices who are not. And so they could basically say, you know what, we don't think the money should go to them. We're not going to take the money out of the budget and give it to these schools and let them be able to have running water that is clean and all these different things and
Yeah,
infrastructure.
imagine that running water in the
And
21st
infrastructure.
Yeah.
And and air conditioning and things like that. So
Yeah.
look up Leandro, Leandro, and look that up, Leandro bill. And I wanted to really get it out to the media. So we did like a press release and sent it out. I know like Deborah did a story a couple of years ago. They did a documentary about it.
I did
But
remember that. But
yeah,
the problem is it's so much stuff. And
yeah.
it's almost like we need like a separate channel just for these types of things or whatever. I don't know.
No, I agree. So one of the things that's on my plan for my community, I just started middle of April. So I've only been here, I'm going with 90, haven't been there 3-4 months yet. But one of the things I have on there is doing a podcast with Anderson, our chair, because she's so knowledgeable about everything that's going on, and she's such a very good voice and such an asset to the party. And I think, like to your point, updating people about what's happening and the latest bills in North Carolina and things that impact us, and having these conversations even daily, I think would be good. So we've been talking about recording a podcast or having like something like this. But what we do is we send out press releases. When something happens, we send out press releases to the media. We make them aware. We have a content package that also goes out. You can get that if you go to our website, ncdp.org. You can click on content package and you'll get a weekly message on Wednesday. And it has graphics that you can use and share on your social media. So let's say you're like, I'm not tech savvy, but I want to post something that says, dump Trump, or just, I want to put something about what's happening with the Medicare cuts. We'll have graphics that you can save and you can share it. And so we do that so that people have talking points or things that they can say that are factual and correct in support of our party and in support of what we're doing. So I think that's one of the answers to your question is we do have content packages that our digital team and I do the messaging, and we create that weekly that goes out to our party members.
I have to say that I've been disappointed with our legacy media. I feel, and I can only speak from the national standpoint, because I do think locally, for the most part, our people do a good job.
I think locally, yes, I have no complaints about
Yeah.
our local media for the most part. Yeah, I think
there's a lot of stuff that's missing, because I listen to independent media to get all the tidbits and facts, and it's mind blowing the stuff that is being missed on legacy media.
And that's why it's important that you're having conversations like these with people like me, and we're going to get Anderson on the show so she can even talk more policy. So make sure you guys tune back in for that. We've got to do it ourselves, and I think local news, I don't want to say is dying, but I've seen cutbacks.
Yes.
I'm hearing about cutbacks all across
friends that because we're in NABJ. Are you going to be in Cleveland?
I plan to go. I'm hoping to go.
Okay.
My great uncle Al Fitzpatrick was a former president back in the 80s, and he's a Pulitzer award-winning journalist. He's how I kind of got in journalism, and I think they're going to do a little something special for him. So I want to make sure I'm there for that. He's in Akron, Ohio, 95.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. So see, Congress has given its power to Trump. That this is truth. You know what? There are so many new laws and things that need to be passed when we can get over Trump. If we are blessed to get over him, because Peter Thiel and these guys they're cooking the books and doing all kinds of things with AI, and I fear for what's happening now. I really do.
I think about too, just like when you talk about things that we're actively doing, like with Tillis, like going to his office, standing out there in Charlotte, and we had people out there just protesting. I think that voices do matter when people say they don't. I mean, he changed his mind on voting for the bill. I mean, he finally stood up after not standing up for a long time. But it's like, that's just an example. Like
I wrote back about that, his vote for what's the defense guy? The defense guy that he voted in, and I said, yeah, I said, better than to vote for that guy, because you could tell in his hesitation he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it, and I said, better. You did not want to vote for him. Why did you do it? It's like being bullied and you just succumb to the bully. It's ridiculous. Grown men. Yeah.
Oh, my bestie's on. Nice, Sandy.
Yeah, this education.
You got a question.
And here's get information, ncdp.org. Get the information, guys. Oh, Yusuf, is that your hubby?
Yeah, look, hey, my family's on. Sandy was asking about education. She's an educator in Texas, and it's hard for her, because
it's jacked up.
It is. And so then here, I'm trying to get her to move here to North Carolina, because it's much better in Durham than it is there. But I will note, when I was in New Jersey, I've been a lot of places, our babysitter was a teacher. And I remember her coming home crying because she couldn't read certain books and she couldn't do certain things in her class. And I remember one day I just looked at her, she's not teaching anymore. She's not teaching anymore. And so it's like we're losing educators. My cousin Audra's a teacher. She's been a teacher in Durham for over 20 years. And it's just changed. She's still in the good fight, but it's changed a lot.
Right.
Oh, public media.
Yeah, public media. Mark has talked about public media with NPR cuts and all of that. I mean, a lot of those people, where are they getting their weather watches and things like that for? I mean, if it's not for public media, you won't get it in rural areas.
Remember when Trump first started, like those executive orders, and we started to see the cuts initially. With those cuts, found out, oh, wait, the parks and recs, you mean like you're cutting these jobs too? You're not going to have park rangers. A lot of that was in rural areas, and it was in North Carolina. And to your point, some of these people did TV interviews because they voted for Trump and they did not know they would be impacted by what happened. You know, and then you look at what happened with all the planes. Like I've flown a lot. You have too, Pam. All of a sudden you have all these crashes. God bless these families. Right. And it's like, because you cut TSA jobs. So it's just like, again, it's like all of these cuts have a ripple effect. It's almost like the butterfly effect movie. Like you're making these decisions, these executive orders, and you're carrying out these bills, and you're getting Congress to vote these things in, and they're hurting the average day American and the North Carolinian. And, you know, to your point with public media, you're like, how is that going? Like the Weather Service, like look what happened with the flooding in Texas. How many lives could have been saved? Now we're talking about
the street in Durham.
In Durham, Old Farm, my old neighborhood.
Yeah.
So now you're talking about right. And now you're talking about, and I you know, that when you say it's like, I grew up there. I remember Fran. I remember the flooding that happened during Fran. I remember us not having power, electricity in the summer. I remember not having just water. We didn't have working water when Fran hit.
Yeah.
In North Carolina. I remember that, and I was in high school.
It was one of those bizarre hurricanes. That was like the Africa nature hurricane that came inland. In fact, I think they said, was that the first hurricane they had in North Carolina that came that far inland?
I would say it was one of the worst on record that came in. So that sounds about right. Because I mean, nothing like that's happened since.
No.
Now, flooding that just happened with Chantel is crazy, because I was looking at the News and Observer video over, I mean, you know, and there's a lot of Burmites from Old Farm. A lot of us are still here, have come back, have businesses and different things. So it's just disheartening. But to your point, like, you've got to be able to have these agencies operate at full capacity. And when you cut these agencies out, you cut out the resources to the people, which brings me to like public radio, public media, as my husband Yusef brought up in the chat. I mean, they're cutting funding for public media, and there are a lot of rural areas that rely on public media. Like you think about PBS here in North Carolina, with, as I told you, with us being the second state with the highest amount of rural counties next to Texas in the nation. There are a lot of areas that listen to it, and it's unbiased media. And I think he doesn't like anyone that has talked about him. He's like on a vendetta. He's like he's going after CBS, and he's suing all these networks and, you know, these newspapers, because he doesn't like anyone that doesn't give him praises like Fox News, or doesn't bow down to whatever he says. And that's what he's been doing this whole time. He's been going after Republicans to make them vote the way he wants them to vote. He's been going after anyone who goes against him. I mean, he's just been attacking everyone.
Yeah, you're right, Tasha. They're taking away all the joy, and they're not being paid. But yet the ICE agents are going to get, what is it, $45,000 bonuses for signing up? It's some kind of crazy amount of money to wear a mask, of which people are duplicating that and kidnapping people. They're just, I mean, because if you don't have anything on, there's nothing that clearly identifies you. You know, nowadays anybody can have a long gun.
Right. We're living in scary times, and that's why it's so important to do conversations like this with real people who are chiming in and giving their comments, because we're doing all that we can do as a state party. We're again, the only full-time staff. I think, like, we're very dedicated in all different areas, even from the judicial area. Becca Zirkin, I work with her. She helps with the judicial races. I handle communications. We've got Harmon, who does data, statistics. We have Christy, who does trainings. So we're trying to get every area. And then we have our canvassers. People do canvassing and go door to door and host events and talk to the county chairs. And I mean, it's a major operation. And for our county chairs who are volunteering their time all across the county, despite obstacles they're facing, we appreciate you. And I appreciate my colleagues for all that they're doing and taking me in this new endeavor. And I'm just hopeful that as people are watching this, that they feel invigorated, they feel inspired, and they feel like they need to do something. Because I can watch news all day, and sometimes, to your point, Pam, it's depressing. You watch. And so I feel good knowing I'm not just reporting the news, but I feel good knowing that I'm making a difference, that I'm having conversations with you, that I'm helping, you know, whether it's helping a candidate with their social media, or helping them rewrite a press release, or whether it's going to a door or giving someone resources. We were at an event, Better Work was in Charlotte, and there was a woman who didn't get a chance to ask a question on the mic because we were there for over an hour, but we answered a lot of questions, but she didn't get her question answered. She's really upset. And it was about fear that with her losing benefits, that her child, I think who was with autism, would not have resources to go to school. Where is he going to go? I work. I work. What am I going to do with my child? And he, she was like shaking. She was so mad. And I was able to talk, but because of my job, I was able to talk to the comms person with Beto and say, she really wants to talk to him. And we were able to get her in, and she got to close, and she got to shake his hand and have a conversation. So I feel like I'm put in this position for a reason. I was able to go to NAACP, talk to people there. I met the Yvette Bowser, who was the executive creator of Living Single, Help with a Different World, and all of this just vast knowledge from her. And we talk politics. So just have these conversations with different people and getting ideas and strategies and what to bring back to our party. And they're always very open. I say, hey guys, I think we should do this, or I want to share this with you. And I've never felt like they've been like, da, 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 da. They're always like, okay, yeah, go for it. Yeah, we love it. Yeah. So I think that's good.
Listen to this with Renee. Renee is my political from New York. ICE is offering $132K to $185K per year for supervisory roles and $306,000 per year to concentration camp managers. Both jobs have zero education requirement. That is unfreaking believable. And our teachers are working at Walmart and other jobs to sustain themselves. And another thing, to my point, and we've got to close out because it's almost 9:15.
Oh, is it been? I guess. Okay.
What we know for a fact is that so many people who get Medicaid, guys, they are working people. They're working at Walmart. They're working at these jobs that do not pay livable wages and do not offer benefits. So our tax dollars are supplementing these billionaire corporations that are paying people peanuts to work. And it's not fair. It's just not fair. It's terrible. It's terrible. But Amanda, thank you so much. Audience, thank you so much for all of your Renee wrote another thing here. Meanwhile, the average starting salary is $46,500 for teachers and $68,400 for nurses. Both of your jobs require a bachelor's degree and often a graduate. So
you go into debt because remember the Biden administration wiped out $5 billion in student loan debt, because I covered education at the White House last year. And this administration is saying you're going to resume paying your debts. You're going to be paying your student loans back. You're going to have to pay higher prices for groceries. You're going to have a hard time, if at all, being able to purchase a house because of the rates and the costs. And we're also not going to pay it. And we're laying people off. That's our merit under Trump.
That's my
final words. Get active. Let's wake up. Let's get this thing going. Let's find somebody to help. If you're still resting, let's get out of hibernation. Little by little. Maybe it's once a month, then it's once a week. But let's get back active and let's get this fight going, because we need everyone to win. We need everyone to win, and we need everyone to keep with the messaging, align with our messaging, and sending out what we're sending out, and letting people know we are here for you all. We are here. And like to your point, you brought me on to talk about Black women and the Democratic Party, and I just am really hopeful that people will keep on fighting.
All right. Well, let's wave off goodbye. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.